Hey everyone, my name is Trey, for those of you who don't know me. So today I'm going to talk about the Toraja people of Indonesia. I see someone else already did that, but that's okay. I decided to focus perhaps a little bit less on the general idea of the people group itself and focus more on the effects of the Dutch influence of what they did in Indonesia during the early 17th century, so the Dutch East India Trading Company. Um, so basically, as a starter, the Toraja people were, I guess, known more as an agrarian-based society. They were rice cultivators in the beginning, so they lived a very simple life. They lived in the highlands of the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia. And for those of you who don't know, it's a very mountainous and it's often there's not many roads through the area and it's very difficult to access. So it's very interesting when the Dutch came in, when they were exploring these areas, they kind of stumbled upon the Toraja people and they were fascinated by them. And of course, with that, their mission was to come in and do trade with the locals. So they did a lot of trade with them. What I found out in my research was that the Toraja people kind of gave the Dutch coffee, other types of materials for things for trade, and slaves. And the Dutch were really into that. And of course, unfortunately, like everything else in the past, because of this influence, it opened the door to other aspects such as religion. And one of the big things that I found was that Dutch missionaries eventually came in and they tried to convert a lot of the population. So basically, the Toraja people are, or at least have, it seems like animistic, or believe in animism and this types of beliefs. And the Dutch missionaries came in and viewed it as a project of sorts to try and convert people to Christianity. And at first, just like any society, the people were against it, and they didn't really see the value in converting to a new religion when there was nothing wrong with their previous one. So as a result, there was a lot of pushback. However, things changed in probably a couple of years as you know, Indonesia's a majority of the population is Muslim, and there was a lot of kickback regarding the fact that there was even Christians in the country. So as a result, the Toraja people were subjected to a lot of hate crimes and things like that. And because of that, the people were genuinely afraid, and they had every right to be so. So as they were afraid, there was a huge conversion to Christianity, and the main reason behind this was that the people just assumed that, since the Dutch were there, then they were more powerful, that if they somehow just converted to what they wanted them to be, that they'd be safer in the long run. So I think I saw somewhere, so I used Volkman as one of my big resources, and there was a lot of information regarding that. And it was quoted saying that during the 50s and 60s, basically, there was a surge of anywhere from 23,000 to about 90,000 conversions to Christianity, which was a huge deal, and people did that primarily for their safety. And I guess another aspect that's kind of interesting to note is, like we learned about in class, their culture, the Toraja culture, is very interesting, and they have all these rituals, and probably their most famous one that they're known for is their death ritual. I suppose I don't really need to go too much into that, as I'm kind of running out of time, but basically they celebrate the dead a lot, and they have very interesting perspectives on that. And what made the Toraja people kind of popular and put them on the map was the fact that National Geographic went in there around the 1970s or so, and they kind of filmed these rituals and these practices and highlighted the culture. And as soon as that aired, basically their culture took off, and ever since then they've been a big tourist attraction in Indonesia. and so much so that the governments basically recognize them as a cultural icon. So unfortunately, it comes with the pros and the cons. They've been wildly successful, and unfortunately, though, since they're so popular, they have become this big cultural icon, and I think it's been more of a money-making business now for them, as a lot of the culture is lost in the process. So unfortunately, just like perhaps we can relate to the Native Americans, even like them, their culture is completely, it seems on the surface, forgotten, as everything is just a money-making scheme for these rich entrepreneurs or tour guide companies that come in and try to fix everything up for the tourists. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what I covered in the paper to an extent. So thanks for listening.